Okay, so now we have state response. We have Scott Shermer, Annie, oh man, I don't have my notes itself, and Seth Spinner. Not Spiner, not like Brent Spiner from Star Trek, which is what I had to make sure of. Yeah. So if we can welcome them.
All right. So Julie, I did say I was going to start with a joke. I like Matt's statement about Julie, come save us. So maybe we should change this new states to the Julie, come save us states, right? All right. So. All right, so my name's Scott Shermer with the Illinois Department of Agriculture. I got a handful of slides I'm going to try and burn through to kind of get everybody up to speed on where we are in Illinois. So we just found it last September, so I think everybody's probably pretty familiar with that by now. So here's some maps, some crude data collection that we've done thus far. So in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the general northern portion of the state where we've had reports. The yellow ones are kind of uncorroborated. To the right is kind of a zoom in of where we do have more of the actual confirmed finds and reports. And then down in that left-hand corner, that September 16th report is the one that actually ended up resulting in the confirmed location or the infestation area. So the infestation location, zooming in a little bit in the upper right-hand corner, it's at a park. So the actual report came in from a residential area on the good side of the tracks. And on the other side of the tracks is where we ended up finding the infestation. And that'll be actually kind of important a little later on. But just some photos additionally from the actual first find. If you could have drawn up what a infestation location would be, I think this would probably be it. It was like 50 feet away from train tracks, grapevines all over the place, tree heaven all over the place. There was a little SLF nightclub too, so it was kind of but obviously they were in the mood when we got there, so there was a lot of pairing up and tripling up when we were there, so things were happening. This is just a picture of me to show that I do get out in the field once in a while still, and they did find some affinity to me. I don't know if blue is something we can look at as far as an attractant, but maybe it was my smell, I don't know. And then there, importantly, Tricia Bethke with the Morton Arboretum, who I'll mention later on with some of our education and outreach efforts. So, obviously we do have rail in the area. If you look at the red dot, the actual infestation location, the maroon with the star in it is where that first report came from. We were first looking around, we're like, oh, there's some rail right here. And then you zoom out and you're like, there's a lot more rail down here. And then if you zoom out even more, there's a lot more rail in the more area, and there's going to be more rail in the more area when you start looking at Illinois. So this is the, oops, how do I go back? There we go. That's that last slide. So the infestation area, and then that rail yard that was right to the south of it. These are all probably in a 6 or 7 mile radius of large rail yards that are in the general vicinity, and we have the full alphabet soup of the big players. And then additionally, I threw in Metra and CTA, which are the commuter lines as well. So we did see a lot of movement of Asian longhorn beetle associated with the L. So I just think that there's probably going to be some added risk with the commuter lines moving pests along as well. So kind of shifting gears a little bit on kind of our response and our preparedness. I think it's important to mention, and I'll poke fun at Tricia here. I looked at this, and their USDA isn't mentioned on the list, so you guys are definitely on the list as the local PPQ office. But that SLF EDRR team is something that we put in place a long time ago. And the members of that group are of course us, U of I CAPS, INHS, which is Natural History Survey, Bureau of Forestry of Chicago Extension, and DNR Forestry. So we had a group of folks that met regularly, kind of knew what we were going to do when we found it, or thought we knew what we were going to do when we found it. You're never really fully prepared, are you? And we met regularly, and we're still trying to meet regularly to update our approach and keep up with the times as far as how we're going to continue to address this. Brian, I was talking about this during our break. We found it in 2023, but this is some good work that Tricia did out of the Arboretum. kind of in advance. So you can see all the outreach efforts that she did starting back in 2016, and the number of people that were present, the number of people that were made aware of this way in advance before we even found it. So I think that's key, getting out in front of it, letting people know about it. It's certainly going to help you not only in your response, but also getting the reports to come in if people are aware. Here's another effort trying to engage the citizens. You know, Dana said a lot of the reporting comes from the public, and that's certainly true. And what we did, Tricia did, and John Lowe at the City of Chicago, was to try and establish monitoring zones, engage citizen scientists, look at Tree of Heaven, find Tree of Heaven, record it, and then continue to monitor those trees and those sites for spotted lanternfly to show up. So definitely the public engagement, getting them involved and having some skin in the game, so to speak. And then briefly, 2024 and beyond, you know, we're still looking at, you know, trying to get out there and take another look, do some tracking along the rail lines. And then here's just a list of additional things that Tricia has on her list of things to do. And I'm sure we'll have some come out of that's SLF readiness team, preparedness team in Illinois. And I think that's about it. The only thing, you know, I know we do have the I know we do have the outreach session tonight, but one thing that Tricia did want me to mention was that you know, getting out in front of it, we had about 110 media inquiries and interview requests and things like that, like within the day or two after we found it and announced that information. So I think that response was key in engaging the media, getting that information out really quickly, but also kudos to them for, you know, taking it and running with it and reaching out to us to get all that info out rapidly. And additionally, just trying to unify your message early on, make sure that all the people that are going to be talking about it are saying the same thing, you know, to really give yourself added credibility. So with that, probably won't take questions now, but I'll pass it over to Annie.
I'm Annie Self with Tennessee Department of Agriculture. Okay, it's this big green button, right? Okay, okay. And Cindy Bilbrey is our state entomologist, and she's here today. So we found spotted lanternfly just about the same time Scott did, but I went ahead and announced it before Scott. Yeah. So everybody's seen these pictures, but I wanted to let you know that we found our bigger infestation because we had people out looking and they saw sooty mold over by the railroad tracks. And then we did, these aren't our pictures, we did find some egg masses on outdoor furniture. And I think that was at a wedding venue in Nashville. Oh yeah, and that's how they move. We have a very talented young inspector who did a great job with videos. So we started surveying right away, and this, I wanted to show you our cool shirts that one of our inspectors' dads made for us. This is not a safety photo. But we did have some great t-shirts made up. And then the end of January, Chad came over from North Carolina and spent a week with us with Goose, which was very helpful. And we had it was also a great interactive event with other agencies because Jason Watkins came over and went out. We had PPQ officers, we had forestry folks participate. We had some forestry folks from the western part of the state, we had folks come from a broad area to come out. Of course, they came because they wanted to see goose, but they also looked for egg masses. So this is kind of a big picture. So Davidson County with the bigger yellow dot, that's where Nashville is. And then there's another very small site in the adjoining county to the east. So this is where we've surveyed so far for adults. We started with adults. We started right away in September. And then this is like a lot like Scott's, except we don't have quite as much rail in the area, but we do have rail. There's a large construction landfill right across from the railroad tracks. So we've spent more time in that area and it's easy. We did get permission to access the railroad, but it's easier to go in from that construction landfill side. So we've got all manner of things. We've got greenways and Metro Parks has been made aware and they're helping with this too. So then if you go out 5 miles, you've got the airport down there in the lower corner. So we've got a lot going on in that area, just like everybody else does. And then this small little spot here was found at the end of October. Cindy found that. And then thanks for sending this, Matt. According to the PestCast website, it looks like we could have our first hatch on March 25th. So I don't know if we'll go first or if North Carolina will go first. But we do have a cage that, was it set out last Friday or this Friday? Okay, a cage so we can monitor hatch. So our report came in through the Report a Pest website that our Division of Forestry developed, and it's been really helpful to us. This site went live, and I think 2 days later or the next day, we got our report of the initial find. So that's worked really well for us. And our public affairs folks were very helpful. And right after we announced this, of course, we got all kinds of media requests for interviews, which I sent all of them to Cindy. And then our public affairs folks were kind enough to do a video of Cindy talking about spotted lanternfly, so we didn't have to do interview after interview. We had that video that was sent to the local media outlets, and that saved us a lot of time in dealing with media requests. So we also did a lot on social media. We had these little postcards printed out, we hand out. We, I guess for like the last 4 years or so, we've had little coasters. We've got bar bags put together that you could have been dropped off at some local brew houses, which is a fun thing for inspectors to do after work. We've got stickers. You know, we're just trying to do all the things. And then that's just a picture, another picture like you've seen many times before. And this is our crew, our inspector crew. They're scattered all over the state. You know, Tennessee's a long state, but we've been able to bring everybody in for periods of time so they can see firsthand what it looks like. Because you see all the pictures and it's you know, it's this big red bug. Well, when those nymphs are on trees, they're hard to spot. I mean, I'm not very good at finding them. But now all of our inspectors have been trained. They know what to look for. We've been trying to survey for this the last 3 years. We've done a lot of outreach with vineyards, with local utility companies. But if I walked by a tree in my yard and it had some nymphs on it, I'm not sure I would have seen them. So I think we've had some nice help from Goose. Thank you, Joy and Chad. And we've got all our inspectors trained out. We're trying to get the word out to the public. And if anybody has any suggestions, we're definitely open to hear them. And I want to give a shout out to Cindy again, because she was just tired at the beginning of March last year. So thank you.
All right, I'm Seth Spinner with the Office of the State Entomologist at in Kentucky. And since I'm up here, you can know the spotted lanternfly is now in our state. So I just want to start out this picture in the background here. That is a vineyard in Jessamine County, Kentucky. And the current operations there began there in the 1990s, but it is actually on the same property as a vineyard that began in the 1790s. So we found the spotted lanternfly in our state in October of last year. And it was found in Gallatin County, which is in the northern part of the state. So let's just have a, oops. So this is in northern Kentucky. This is Indiana here, Switzerland County. So there is an infestation in that county. And it's also part of the Cincinnati metro area, technically. So another infestation there. It's a pretty rural county, but you can see I-71 runs through there. There's a bridge coming from Switzerland County. And there's a lot of steel plants along the river there on both sides. So there's a lot of people coming from other areas and bringing RVs and stuff. So there's a lot of traffic in this county. The first infestation we found was in the western part of the county. So this is the property it was found on. In October, we got a report from an extension agent in that county about a possible spotted lanternfly infestation. So this property is about 120 acres, a lot of mature forest with some tree of heaven infestations. So this is the picture that the property owner actually sent in. So we were pretty sure we knew what was going on there. Just picture of the property and some of the tree of heaven there. Some pictures of us surveying. We even began climbing trees looking for this. So over the course of 2 site visits, we found 12 adults. We captured 6. One was captured by the landowner as well. We observed some mating. We saw egg laying. So it is established in Kentucky. Now we did some more surveys in the surrounding areas, but we didn't find anything. But about 2-3 weeks later, Kentucky Division of Forestry did some more surveys, and they found another site in the northeastern part of the county, about 15 miles away from where we found ours. They only found 4 adults though, and didn't see any eggs, didn't see any mating. So just to kind of put this in perspective, we're pretty worried about this. We have over 100 vineyards in the state, and we're getting more starting every year. We have over 500 orchards. As far as nurseries go, we have 500 licensed nurseries, 900 licensed nursery dealers, and then many more unlicensed nurseries as well. And all of these industries combined are putting tens or hundreds of millions of dollars a year into the state's economy. So we're pretty worried about this pest in Kentucky. So because of the infestations in Indiana and Ohio, we had been doing a lot of surveys in 2023. This is just a map showing where we had done some stuff. So we did 257. And in 2024, we have another 325 planned. We'll probably end up doing a lot more. And we're going to really be focusing on that high risk area between Cincinnati and Louisville. So we've also been doing a lot of outreach as well. I'm just going to give some quick stats from 2023. So with in-person outreach, we reached over 7,500 people. We made a Tree of Heaven website and a Tree of Heaven Spotted Lanternfly outreach website. And between beginning of 2023 and up until October, I believe we had about 750 visitors to that site. We also distributed hundreds of Tree of Heaven and Spotted Lanternfly outreach materials. And after we discovered that initial infestation, we made 4 or 5 posts on Facebook, and we reached 415,000 people with those posts, and over 41,000 people engaged with them. So that's a really great way to reach people you might not be able to reach, at normal outreach events. This is some examples of stuff that I've designed for to use this upcoming season. We're going to put these out at some way stations and interstate rest areas. Something similar for state parks, kind of a general don't move firewood message, but with some specific spotted lanternfly messaging on there. And we also have a citizen science program. This started in 2022. Last year, we had the most participants, about 450. Most of those people were setting spongy moth traps, but we got 84 spotted lanternfly surveys and 45 tree of heaven surveys out of this program. And this is just a map showing where some of those were conducted. You can see we got a lot here in this high risk area, so that was great. And finally, just to end it, this picture here is of a wine cellar at the Baker Bird Distillery and Winery in Augusta, Kentucky. And supposedly they claim that this is the oldest continuously used wine cellar in the US and the only one to survive a Civil War battle. So I just point these out to show that this insect could impact some really important parts of Kentucky's history and heritage. That's all I have. Thank you.
We do have a handful of questions that came on in the Q&A. From Jules Griffin, has Tennessee gotten the chance to survey Bristol following the Virginia find?
Yes, we have sent some folks up. We've got one inspector in the Bristol area, and we are going to continue to really keep a close eye on Bristol.
Thank you. From David Anderson, what measures are each of the 3 states taking to control spotted lanternfly at these sites?
So as far as Kentucky goes, since we found this so late in the season and there was so few individuals, we maybe saw half a dozen total or a dozen and a half total. We aren't really doing anything right now. We're trying to just do a lot of monitoring and see what's going on. Unfortunately, we only have 6 people in our office, so we really don't have much manpower. We're already spread pretty thin. We don't really have funds for management as of now. So right now, we're just going to be doing a lot of monitoring and trying to see what happens.
So we did spray some of the adults. Sorry about that. We did 1 day of spraying, and we're going to start as soon as we see hatch, which could be in a couple weeks. We did a lot of egg mass scraping. We had inspectors out every week for a couple months looking for egg masses and then destroying them as soon as they were found. And we're going to continue that.
Excuse me, I would echo everything that Seth and Annie said, aside from the fact we didn't do any spraying. We were in the same boat as Seth, where it was found late in the season and didn't have a lot of time to do much of anything other than kind of react and respond immediately. But we were working with the property owner. They have the intention of doing some spraying. So we'll support that. We'll go out and we're still planning on going out there to look around a little more and help them with that evaluation and that effort. But they're looking to do some spraying themselves at this point.
Thank you. 2 more online questions. This one is from Amanda Rowe. What triggered the extension agent to visit the Gallatin County site? Were they alerted by the landowner?
So yes, they were alerted by the landowner, and it seems like our outreach efforts were paying off because she actually had learned about the spotted lanternfly through our outreach materials we had been distributing in that county.
All right, thank you. And lastly, from David Giannino, question for the panel. Any discussion of quarantines at this point?
Thanks, David. No for Illinois.
David, we've discussed quarantines, but we have no plans to quarantine at this time.
No plans in Kentucky either.
All right, and one last second one that came in here, from Nicole Zubart. Are you deploying any traps at these sites?
In Kentucky, we have plans for this upcoming season to deploy traps at that site. We found it and then a lot in the surrounding areas as well.
We do plan to do some trapping in Tennessee this year. We've had traps out, either Extension or TDA has had traps out the last several years, but so far we have yet to spotted lanternfly in a trap.
And I would like to, yeah, I need to look into that a little more, but it would definitely help our situation out. Trying to get a little better resolution on things, yeah.
So I was kind of familiar with the citizen science program related to spongy moth. Are any of the other states kind of taking on a citizen science approach to spotted lanternfly?
We've talked about it, and so far that's as far as we've gotten.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we started doing a spotted lanternfly and tree heaven citizen science program in 2022. And we really hope to get a lot more participants in there this coming season. We already been talking with groups like Master Gardeners, Master Naturalists, a lot of stuff through Extension. To get a lot of data, hopefully, from citizen scientists in those really high-risk areas in Kentucky.
I'll just add, yeah, I showed the efforts that that Tricia had kind of been forging in Illinois, and she's actually been doing a lot of work on developing things through Ed's maps and things like that, where you can not only identify the excuse me, tree of heaven. My understanding is that this is pretty novel, is that you identify the tree of heaven, but then you also continue to go monitor them, and you can report back on that instead of just reporting a singular location or tree. You actually continue to feed data into that you're monitoring it, and it's negative, and it's negative, and then it's positive. So that's basically what we've been doing as far as the citizen scientist goes. I'm sure there's other options to come, but that was something that we were using to kind of fuel our early survey efforts too. Yeah, almost setting up like sentinel plots, right? To kind of keep an eye on things. Yep.
Okay,
Thanks.
I'm not Dana.
oh, you can go, it's okay.
What?
We had one over here first.
Okay. So it's not really a question, Seth. I saw your concern about the orchards, and I just want to point out, and certainly we have Extension folks here that can talk to you more about this, but when we talk to them, the orchards themselves don't find a problem with the insects in their orchards. Their IPM programs generally will take care of that because they're spraying for other things and the bug is easy to kill. Okay. So that's the good news for you. But they will be in the tree lines around the orchards. So that's where you need to tell them to focus to look. Okay.
I was just curious whether any of you had any tips, best practices, or lessons learned for coordination across states, because it seems like a lot of these initial findings are sort of right on the border, like of Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. Does that involve multi-state collaborations to address these?
I'll make a comment that, I mean, we're early in on this this summit this year, and I think it's already been established that there's a really good network of people that are working on this, and between the states, we certainly communicate. I mean, we know, we can see it coming, and we had an idea probably where we were going to find it. Not only talking with other states and kind of seeing what's going on, but also the work that Matt's been doing with modeling and predicting where it's likely to show up. So I think just the communication across states is gonna be very beneficial in that. We haven't gone to Indiana to see their infestation, though there has been invitations to do that. But, we've already talked about that, Joy has let the dog come to Tennessee to help out. So, I mean, I don't think that, political boundaries are really going to be a challenge here when it comes to actually sharing and cooperating. Maybe more of a challenge when it comes to other components of it. But yeah, I think working together is already been established that this group is willing to do that. Yeah.
And I'd like to echo that. We sent inspectors to Virginia 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Wow. 3 years ago to look at their infestation and look at their survey methods, and North Carolina inspectors were there at the same time. So yeah, it's not just an internal state issue.
I'll just add for Pennsylvania, we have a property that, a company that actually straddles Ohio and Pennsylvania. And we partnered with Ohio and a contractor so that they were able to work with us, and Ohio came and joined our team when they were out there doing the operations. So yeah, it's a big family for the states.
I have a question. So at what point do you bring in contractors? Y'all who have been dealing with this.
We brought them in probably 2 years after the infestation. At that time, we did not have licenses to apply pesticides. We now have changed that, which actually really helps the dollar stretch. So if you have that authority, if you have that ability, do it. And now the way that Jake sets up the operation, we're really particular about where the contractors go. They have certain tools we may not. So we're very choosy about who goes to do what things between contractors and the state. So again, it's a process that's evolved since we started.
Based on your opinion at seeing these sites, and for those of you who have multiple sites in your state, can you tell which ones are older? And do you know, sort of relatively speaking, when they actually were there? Do you see egg masses, tree flagging, anything like that?
I'll start and say that best I can tell, ours is pretty new. I mean, probably 2 to 3 years old. It's pretty tight. It's pretty confined. We were only able to find it a couple of blocks out from that kind of core, what we'll call the core. There were egg masses, but they were kind of few and far between. So I don't know if that answers your question, Matt, but yeah, I mean, it seems to be pretty new, pretty tightly contained at this point. It's still hard to tell how much has actually moved along the rail, but in that immediate geography, we were only able to find adults maybe 2 blocks out from that kind of core. But we found a lot more than, like Seth said, they found 12 or 13 adults. I mean, we probably hundreds there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was the same for us. Mostly because of the extent of the city mold. And we found a lot of egg masses, a lot of adults. So I'm thinking 3-4 years. I don't know, it's possible longer.
With how few we found at our sites, and we also did not find any old egg masses. Everything looked pretty freshly laid, nothing from previous seasons that we could find. So I think the one in Kentucky is very new. It's also only 2 miles from the state line with Indiana. And I think in total, only 6 miles from their nearest infestation. So I think this is, I mean, possibly a year. I don't think it's very old at all.
Okay, so Kentucky is probably the earliest, and it was called in by someone who was essentially trained by you. And so all those steps seem to make sense.
Yes.
But then you mentioned then that you're not going to treat it.
Mhm.
And
Well,
so, how is that? Because then the next step certainly would be to treat that nascent population, 'cause you
Mhm.
could essentially eliminate from your state. And that
Yeah.
might be a win for the
Yeah.
whole group, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. To say that you've done that, even though it is only a few miles away from
Mhm.
the Indiana population.
yeah.
So why is that not happening? Why is the treatment not happening?
We just don't really have the funds or the manpower to do so. Now we are giving that landowner who we noticed was already treating Tree of Heaven on the property. We've given her a lot of guidance on what she could do with as far as the spotted lanternfly goes, but at this point, that's about all we can do.
Give them a round of applause.